The Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad holds a rich history that intertwines with both the industrial boom of the region and its transformation into a beloved tourist destination. While many recognize it today for its vintage steam locomotives and scenic journeys, fewer are aware of the deeper stories behind its development and preservation. The railroad's roots go back to the early 1900s, originally built not to cater to tourists, but to serve as a vital link for the thriving logging industry in Washington state. The vast forests surrounding Mount Rainier were teeming with timber that the world desperately needed at the time. The railway played a crucial role in transporting the logs from deep within the forest to mills where they would be processed. However, the original purpose of the railway began to fade as the timber industry declined in the mid-20th century. One of the lesser-known facts about the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad is that it was nearly lost altogether during this time. When the demand for timber shrank and logging operations moved elsewhere, the railroad faced abandonment. The rails began to rust, the depots emptied, and the iconic steam locomotives were left unused, relics of a bygone era. For decades, the railroad was on the brink of being forgotten. But in the 1980s, the railroad saw a revival, not as an industrial necessity, but as a preservation of history. Local volunteers and history enthusiasts banded together to restore the tracks and engines, transforming it into the tourist attraction we know today. They brought the steam engines back to life, with meticulous restorations of the original locomotives that once carried lumber. Today, it's one of the few places in the United States where you can experience a fully operational steam-powered train on its original tracks. Another unknown fact is the sheer variety of vintage locomotives and cars in the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad's collection. Some of the steam locomotives are over a century old, preserved in their original form, making this railway one of the most authentic experiences of early 20th century rail travel. These locomotives aren't just restored museum pieces, they're fully operational, and each has its own unique story. For example, some engines were used during World War II to support wartime industries, adding a layer of historical significance beyond their role in logging. In addition to the historical significance of its locomotives, the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad also provides a rare opportunity to witness what's known as logging railroads. These specialized railroads, built specifically for logging purposes, are rare in today's world, and Mount Rainier remains one of the few examples left where you can see how railroads were integral to the timber industry. Despite its proximity to Mount Rainier National Park, another fact that often surprises visitors is that the railroad doesn't just offer stunning views of the mountain. It also takes you through a living museum of the logging industry's history. The route winds past authentic logging camps and equipment that have been preserved along the tracks, offering passengers a glimpse into the lives of the loggers who once worked in these forests. One more surprising piece of trivia: the railroad's operation is largely supported by volunteers. Many of the people running the trains, maintaining the locomotives, and restoring the cars are volunteers who are passionate about keeping the history alive. Their dedication ensures that each ride isn't just a trip through nature but a journey into the past, filled with the authenticity of a true labor of love. Beyond the restored steam engines and vintage cars, the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad also offers special events throughout the year, with some of the lesser-known being their themed train rides, such as holiday excursions and even train robberies, where actors stage old-time Western-style heists. These events bring an interactive element to the ride, making it more than just a scenic trip but an immersive historical experience. Few people realize that the railway plays a crucial role in preserving Washington state's logging history through the museum at the depot. This museum is one of the most comprehensive collections of logging equipment and memorabilia in the Pacific Northwest. The exhibits not only showcase the evolution of logging technology but also highlight the critical environmental and economic impacts logging had on the region. hidden role in conservation efforts. While the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad began as a tool for the logging industry, it ironically played a part in sparking early conservation movements in Washington state. The environmental damage caused by unchecked logging in the early 20th century eventually led to the establishment of Mount Rainier National Park in 1899, one of the first national parks in the U.S. Though the railroad transported logs, it also indirectly helped raise awareness about the importance of preserving the region's natural beauty, which was being lost to deforestation. This juxtaposition of exploitation and preservation forms a unique narrative that most people don't know. The longest continuously operating steam-powered logging railway in the U.S. Another lesser-known fact is that the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad is the longest continuously operating steam-powered logging railway in the United States. While many other logging railroads were either abandoned or switched to diesel engines, this scenic railroad remained committed to its steam-powered roots. This unique distinction makes it a treasure for steam enthusiasts, as it's one of the few places where you can still experience a fully functional steam locomotive that was once vital for the logging industry. Special track gauge. The railroad's track gauge is narrower than the standard gauge used by most railroads. Known as a narrow gauge railroad, it was built specifically to navigate the sharp turns and steep inclines of the mountainous logging areas. The smaller gauge allowed the trains to access remote parts of the forest, which larger, standard gauge trains couldn't reach. This detail often goes unnoticed by tourists, but it's a fascinating technical aspect that highlights the ingenuity behind the railway's design. A collection of rare, non-steam engines. While the steam engines often steal the spotlight, the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad also boasts a collection of rare, non-steam locomotives, including diesel and electric engines from the mid-20th century. These engines were used during the transition period when steam power was being phased out across industries. The railroad preserves these non-steam engines as a way to showcase the evolution of railway technology, but few visitors realize that these unique locomotives are also a part of its impressive collection. Ties to the Civilian Conservation Corps, CCC. During the Great Depression in the 1930s, the Civilian Conservation Corps, CCC, a government program designed to provide jobs through public works projects, played a significant role in maintaining and repairing parts of the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad. The CCC was responsible for building and restoring logging infrastructure, bridges, and camp facilities that were linked to the railroad. This little-known connection ties the railroad to a broader historical context of American social programs and efforts to revitalize the economy during tough times. Volcanic origins of the tracks. Here's a surprising geological twist. Much of the ballast, the crushed stone used to support the tracks along the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad, is made from volcanic rock. The surrounding landscape is shaped by Mount Rainier, an active volcano, and the railroad uses local volcanic material to support its tracks. This subtle fact connects the railway even more closely to the land it travels through, as its very foundation is built from the ancient remnants of volcanic activity. The railway once served as a lifeline during natural disasters. Though the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad is now a tourist attraction, there were times in history when it served as an essential lifeline for the communities around Mount Rainier. During severe floods and other natural disasters in the region, when roads were washed out or impassable, the railroad became a crucial transportation link for delivering supplies, evacuating residents, and assisting in rescue efforts. Its presence was more than just industrial, it was part of the region's emergency infrastructure. Home to the only operational Willamette locomotive, the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad is home to the only operational Willamette locomotive in the world. Willamette locomotives were specifically designed to handle the steep terrain of logging railroads and were known for their durability and power. These engines were competitors to the Shay locomotives, another type used for logging, but the Willamettes were far rarer. The fact that the railroad still operates this unique engine makes it a living piece of industrial history. The haunted legends. Like many historic railways, the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad has its share of ghost stories. Some say that certain sections of the track are haunted by the spirits of loggers who lost their lives in the dangerous working conditions of the early 1900s. There are reports from both visitors and workers of strange sightings and eerie noises in the dense forest along the route. While these stories are often dismissed as folklore, they add a layer of mystery to the railroad, blending history with the supernatural. Not just for show, the railroad is still occasionally used for freight, though primarily a tourist attraction today. There have been instances where the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad has been used for practical freight purposes. On rare occasions, local businesses and industries have leveraged the line to transport small shipments of timber or other goods, a nod to the railroad's original function. While this isn't widely publicized, it's a testament to the railway's enduring functionality beyond tourism. One of the last Heisler locomotives in the U.S. The Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad is home to one of the last operational Heisler locomotives in the United States. Heisler locomotives are rare and were specifically designed for logging railroads in rough terrain. Known for their distinctive gear-driven design, these engines could easily navigate the tight curves and steep grades of logging routes. While the Shay locomotives are more commonly associated with logging, the Heisler offered a more efficient and flexible alternative, but few remain in service today. The tracks cross historic bridges built by hand. The route includes several bridges that date back to the early 20th century, many of which were constructed by hand. These bridges, made from local timber and later reinforced with steel, were essential for the railroad to cross rivers and ravines in the mountainous terrain. Some of these historic bridges have remained in use, despite their age, due to careful restoration efforts. They are a testament to the craftsmanship and engineering required to build a railroad in such a rugged environment. It was once a preferred method for visiting Mount Rainier National Park before the widespread use of cars. The Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad was actually a popular way for early visitors to access Mount Rainier National Park. In the early 20th century, visitors would often take the train to nearby towns and then use stagecoaches or other local transport to reach the park itself. This historical connection to the national park is not well known today, as most people now travel by car, but the railroad played a key role in early tourism to the region. The railroad survived multiple natural disasters. The Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad has faced numerous natural challenges over the years, including floods, landslides, and even volcanic eruptions. The surrounding area is prone to severe flooding due to its proximity to Mount Rainier and the many rivers that flow from the mountain. Despite this, the railroad has survived several major floods that have washed away sections of the tracks, forcing reconstruction efforts. The resilience of the railway is part of its storied history, though few people realize how close it came to permanent closure on several occasions. Early use of portable logging camps. In the early logging days, the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad was part of a network that supported portable logging camps. These camps would be built near a logging site and, when the area was cleared, the entire camp, including housing for workers, would be packed up and moved further down the line. The railroad transported not only logs but also these mobile camps, a little-known aspect of early logging life in Washington. Today, the remnants of this mobile logging culture can be found in the preserved logging camp exhibits near the railway. The role of indigenous land. The tracks of the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad pass through lands that were historically inhabited by indigenous tribes, including the Puyallup and Nisqually peoples. Before logging began in the area, these tribes used the land for hunting, fishing, and gathering. While the impact of the railroad on indigenous communities is not widely discussed, it's important to note that the expansion of railroads, including the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad, contributed to significant changes in land use and access for these tribes. The historical context adds a layer of complexity to the railroad's development and its environmental impact. It operated on wartime rationing during World War II. Like many other railways, the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad had to adapt to the strict fuel and material rationing imposed by the U.S. government. Coal, which was used to fuel the steam engines, became a scarce commodity. As a result, the railroad had to implement strict measures to conserve fuel, limiting non-essential trips and prioritizing wartime freight transportation. This period in the railroad's history demonstrates how it played a small but crucial role in supporting the war effort by transporting materials and goods from the forests to manufacturing hubs. Limited passenger services before the railroad transitioned into a tourist attraction. It did briefly offer limited passenger services to local residents in addition to its primary role of transporting logs. These passenger services were mostly used by workers traveling to and from the logging camps or nearby towns, but they also occasionally carried local families and schoolchildren. However, this aspect of the railroad's history is often overshadowed by its logging legacy, and few people know that passengers once relied on it for more than sightseeing. The ghost town along the tracks. One of the lesser-known stops along the route is a small ghost town known as Melmont, which was once a thriving coal mining community in the early 1900s. While the town has long since been abandoned, remnants of its buildings and coal mining equipment can still be seen near the tracks. Melmont is a hidden gem of the region, and passengers on the scenic railroad can catch glimpses of this forgotten piece of history. The town's downfall, tied to the decline of coal mining and the rise of other energy sources, serves as a reminder of the impermanence of industry in the region. Steam locomotives are not always original. While the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad operates several historic steam locomotives, many have undergone significant modifications over the years. In fact, during the restoration process, some of these locomotives were pieced together using parts from other engines. This practice, known as cannibalizing parts, was common in the railway industry as it helped keep aging locomotives in working order when replacement parts were scarce or expensive. While these restored engines may not be 100% original, they are still authentic examples of the steam technology used during the height of the logging era. Preservation of rare, logging cars. Alongside its collection of steam engines, the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad also preserves a variety of logging cars, some of which are extremely rare. These cars, used to transport logs from the forests, were designed to carry massive loads and navigate the sharp curves of the mountainous terrain. Unlike standard freight cars, logging cars were often designed with specialized equipment like log bunks, which help secure logs in place during transportation. These unique cars are part of the historical collection at the Railroad's Museum, offering a glimpse into the specialized technology used by the logging industry. Unique role in rail film productions. The Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad has been used in a number of film and television productions, particularly those requiring authentic steam locomotives or vintage rail scenes. Its period-accurate trains and scenic setting make it a perfect backdrop for historical films. This little-known fact highlights the railroad's versatility beyond tourism and its contribution to preserving railroad history on the big screen. It continues to be a favored location for filmmakers seeking to capture the essence of early 20th century rail travel. In sum, while the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad is known for its beautiful routes and historic charm, its deeper history, from near abandonment to its revival through volunteer efforts, and its ongoing dedication to preserving the legacy of Washington's logging industry, are the real gems hidden behind the tracks. Each journey on this scenic railroad isn't just about the views. It's a trip back in time, carried forward by the smoke and steam of history.